I'm Hannah, 29, standing in the attic of my family's old farmhouse, dust swirling around me. My fingers tremble as I hold a worn journal, its leather cover carved with my childhood nickname Sparrow. 2 months ago, my parents' will broke my heart. My sister Charlotte got millions, their entire fortune. Me, just this crumbling farm, worthless to everyone. At the will reading, Charlotte laughed, saying, "I deserve nothing." But this journal mentions Grandpa's secret room. What did he hide? Have you ever been betrayed by family? Share where you're watching from and hit like or subscribe to find out what I uncover next. I sat in the lawyer's office, my hands smoothing the skirt of my best dress, a navy cotton thing I'd worn to every important occasion since college. The room smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, and the air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. My sister Charlotte sat across from me, her silk blouse catching the light, her manicured nails tapping her phone. She didn't look at me, just scrolled, her lips curved in a way that said she already knew what was coming. I didn't. I was 29, still hoping for fairness, still believing our parents would split things evenly. Mom and Dad had been gone 6 months, a car accident that stole them too fast, and this will reading was supposed to bring closure. Instead, it was about to unravel everything. Mr. Harold, the lawyer, cleared his throat. He was in his 60s, with wire-rimmed glasses and a tired kindness in his eyes. He adjusted a stack of papers, his voice steady but hesitant, like he was bracing for impact. I leaned forward, my stomach tight, my fingers twisting the strap of my purse. Aunt Clara, Mom's sister, sat beside me, her floral perfume sharp in the quiet. She patted my knee, but her hand trembled, and I wondered if she knew something I didn't. Mr. Harold began reading, his words blurring into legal jargon about assets and estates. I caught phrases like trust fund and primary residence, my heart lifting with each one. I pictured a small share, enough to fix my car, maybe pay off my student loans. Charlotte shifted her chair, creaking, and I glanced at her. Her smirk widened, and a chill ran through me. Why was she so calm? Then Mr. Harold paused, his eyes flickering to me. He adjusted his glasses and read, "To our daughter Hannah, we bequeath the family farm, including all associated property and structures." My breath caught. The farm, that old place 40 miles out of town, with its sagging roof and fields that hadn't grown anything in years. I blinked, waiting for more, but Mr. Harold moved on. "To our daughter Charlotte, we bequeath the entirety of our financial estate, including all savings investments, and the primary residence valued at approximately $5 million. The room tilted. $5 million? All of it? To Charlotte? My purse strap slipped from my fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud. I stared at Mr. Harold, willing him to correct himself, to say there was a mistake. But he wouldn't meet my eyes, just kept reading, his voice a drone. Aunt Clara's hand tightened on my knee, but it felt distant, like she was touching someone else. I turned to Charlotte, hoping for a reaction, some sign she was as shocked as me. Instead, she laughed. It wasn't a loud laugh, just a sharp, cruel burst, like she'd been holding it in. "Well," she said, leaning back, her voice dripping with amusement, "guess you got what you deserved, Hannah." Her words hit like a slap, and my face burned. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The room was silent, everyone staring at their hands or the walls, anywhere but at me. Mr. Harold coughed, flipping a page, but I couldn't hear him anymore. My ears rang, and my chest felt like it was caving in. Charlotte deserved it. What did that mean? I'd spent my life trying to please our parents, staying close, helping Mom with her garden, listening to Dad's stories about the farm's glory days. Charlotte had moved to the city at 18, chasing her career, barely visiting. She'd roll her eyes when Mom called, but somehow she was the golden child. And me, I got a pile of debt and broken fences. I forced myself to breathe, my hands clenching into fists. Aunt Clara leaned close, her voice a whisper. "I tried to warn you, sweetheart. Your mom. She always favored Charlotte." Her words stung, not because they were new, but because I'd ignored the signs. Mom's pride in Charlotte's promotions, Dad's silence when I talked about my teaching job. I thought love was enough to balance things. I was wrong. Charlotte stood smoothing her blouse, already checking her watch. Well, that's that, she said, like we'd just finished a board game. She looked at me, her eyes cold. Good luck with the farm, Hannah. Maybe you can sell it for scrap. She walked out, her heels clicking, leaving me frozen in my chair. Aunt Clara squeezed my hand, but I pulled away, my throat tight. I grabbed my purse and stumbled to my car, the photo of me and Charlotte as kids tucked inside. We were 6 and 9, smiling at the farm, arms around each other. I'd brought it for comfort, a reminder of family. Now it felt like a lie. I drove to the farm, the road blurring through tears I wouldn't let fall. The will played in my head, Charlotte's laugh echoing. Why did they do this? What had I done to deserve nothing? The farm's dirt driveway crunched under my tires, and I parked staring at the house's peeling paint. This was my inheritance. This was my worth. And I had no idea how to face it. I stepped out of the car, the farm's silence pressing against me. The air smelled of dry grass and rust, and the house loomed ahead, its windows dark like empty eyes. My legs felt heavy, but I forced myself to move, climbing the porch steps. The boards creaked under my weight, and I hesitated at the door, my hand on the knob. I hadn't been here in years, not since Dad stopped trying to farm it. I pushed inside, the musty scent of neglect hitting me hard. The living room was frozen in time. Mom's old quilt draped over the couch, a layer of dust dulling its colors. I swallowed my throat raw and set my purse on the table, the photo of me and Charlotte still inside, mocking me. I wandered through the house, my footsteps echoing. In the kitchen, I found a stack of unopened mail bills, mostly some marked urgent. My fingers shook as I sifted through them, each one a reminder of what I'd been given. A water bill 3 months overdue. A property tax notice threatening penalties. I dropped them, my breath shallow, and leaned against the counter, staring at a chipped mug Mom used for her morning tea. I wanted to scream, to demand answers from walls that couldn't speak. Why had they left me this mess? Why hadn't they warned me? I moved to the staircase, needing to see more to understand what this place was now. Upstairs, my old bedroom was bare, just a sagging mattress and a cracked mirror. I caught my reflection, my eyes red, my hair tangled from the drive. I looked like someone who'd lost everything. Maybe I had. I opened the closet, hoping for something, anything, to make sense of this. Inside, I found a shoebox, my name scrawled on it in Dad's handwriting. My heart skipped, and I knelt, pulling it open. It held old report cards, a few birthday cards I'd made for Mom, and a letter unsealed addressed to me. I sat on the floor, the wood cold against my legs, and unfolded the letter. Dad's writing was shaky, dated a year before the accident. Hannah, it started. This farm is yours because you're strong enough to handle it. Strong enough. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the empty room. The farm was a wreck, a money pit, and he thought I could handle it. He went on about resilience, about how he and Mom believed in me, but the words felt hollow. If they believed in me, why did Charlotte get everything else? Why was I left to drown in their debts? I stuffed the letter back in the box, my chest tight. I wanted to believe Dad, to feel the love he claimed, but all I felt was abandonment. I stood, brushing dust off my dress, and headed to the back porch, needing air. The fields stretched out barren and cracked, the barn's roof caving in on one side. I remembered running through those fields as a kid, Charlotte chasing me, both of us laughing. Now she was laughing at me, and I was alone, staring at a legacy of failure. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out, seeing Maggie's name. She was my oldest friend, the one who'd stayed in town while I moved an hour away for work. I answered, my voice hoarse. "Hey, Mags?" She didn't waste time, her words tumbling out. "Hannah, I just heard about the will. I'm so sorry. Charlotte's been at the diner telling everyone you're fine with the farm, that you wanted it." I tried to shut her up, but I froze, my grip tightening on the phone. Charlotte was lying about me, already spinning a story to make herself the hero. Maggie kept talking, her voice softer now. "She's showing off Hannah. New car, new bags, acting like she earned it. People are eating it up." I closed my eyes, picturing Charlotte at the diner, her laugh ringing out, the same one that cut me at the will reading. "Thanks for telling me," I said, barely audible. I hung up my hands, shaking, and leaned against the porch railing, the wood splintering under my palms. The farm wasn't just worthless. It was a trap, and Charlotte was making sure everyone knew I'd fallen into it. I walked to the edge of the property where a rusted gate marked the boundary. Beyond it, the pond glittered, the one place on this land I'd always loved. I used to sit there with Grandpa, tossing pebbles, listening to his stories. Now even that felt tainted, like it belonged to someone else's life. A truck rumbled down the road, slowing as it passed, and a man leaned out, his face weathered, his voice gruff. "You Hannah?" I nodded, wary. "I'm Gregory from next door. That pond's mine, you know. Your dad tried to cheat me out of it years ago. Don't think you're keeping it." I stared, my mind reeling. The pond wasn't even mine. I opened my mouth to argue, but he drove off, dust clouding the air. I stood there, the weight of the day crashing down. The bills, the letter, Charlotte's lies, and now this. I turned back to the house, my steps slow, my heart pounding. The farm wasn't just a burden. It was a fight I hadn't asked for, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to face it. I woke up on the farm's lumpy couch, my neck stiff, the morning light slicing through cracked blinds. The house was cold, the kind of chill that seeps into your bones, and I pulled Mom's quilt tighter around me. Gregory's words from yesterday echoed in my head, his claim to the pond like a fresh bruise. I shuffled to the kitchen, avoiding the stack of bills I'd left on the counter, and made coffee in Mom's old pot, the bitter smell doing little to lift the fog in my chest. I needed to see the farm, to walk it, to find something worth salvaging. Maybe then I could prove Charlotte wrong, prove I wasn't the failure she painted me as. I slipped on my boots and stepped outside, the air sharp with early spring frost. The fields stretched out, a patchwork of neglect, the soil hard and gray under my feet. I remembered Dad talking about corn rows, his voice warm with pride, but now the land looked like it had given up. I walked toward the barn, its red paint peeling like old skin, the roof sagging under years of rain. I pushed open the door, hinges screeching, and stepped into the dim, hay-scented space. Broken tools littered the floor, and a rusted tractor sat in the corner, a relic of better days. My stomach twisted. This was my inheritance, a graveyard of my parents' dreams, dumped on me. I wandered deeper, kicking at straw, hoping for a miracle, maybe a piece of equipment I could sell. Instead, I found a small shed tucked behind a stack of crates, its door padlocked, Dad's initials carved into the wood. My pulse quickened. I grabbed a crowbar from the floor, the metal cold in my hands, and pried the lock off, the wood splintering. Inside it was empty except for a pile of rusted shovels and a single shelf holding a tin can. I opened it, expecting anything, but it was just nails, bent and useless. I slammed the can down, the clang echoing, my frustration boiling over. Was this all Dad left me? Junk and lies about strength. I left the barn, my boots crunching gravel, and headed to the pond, needing its calm, even if Gregory claimed it. The water shimmered, framed by willows, and I sat on a flat rock, my fingers tracing the grooves where I'd carved my name as a kid. I could still hear Grandpa's laugh, his rough hand guiding mine to skip stones. This place was mine, not Gregory's, no matter what he said. But as I sat there, a white envelope caught my eye, half buried in the mud by the shore. I knelt, brushing dirt off, and saw the bank's logo, my name typed in bold. My hands shook as I tore it open, scanning the words. Notice of lien, outstanding debt, $58,000. Foreclosure risk. The paper crumpled in my fist, my breath hitching. The farm wasn't just worthless, it was sinking me. I stood, my legs unsteady, and started back to the house, the letter burning in my pocket. How had Dad let this happen? Why hadn't Mom told me I was halfway across the field when Maggie's car pulled up her tires, kicking up dust? She stepped out, her curly hair tied back, her smile fading as she saw my face. "Hannah, you okay?" she asked, hurrying over. I shook my head, unable to speak, and handed her the letter. She read it, her eyes widening, and then she hugged me, her jacket smelling of lavender. "This is awful," she said, pulling back. "But there's more. I didn't want to tell you over the phone." My stomach dropped. "What now?" I asked, my voice sharp. Maggie hesitated, glancing at the ground. "Charlotte's been at it again. She's telling people you're selling the farm to spite the family, that you're ungrateful for what you got." I laughed, a hollow sound, my hands clenching. "Ungrateful. For this?" I gestured at the barren land, the crumbling barn. Maggie nodded, her eyes soft. "She's living it up, Hannah. New condo, fancy dinners." She posted a photo last night, captioned it, "Living the dream." People are lapping it up. I turned away, my jaw tight, picturing Charlotte's smug face, her perfect life built on my pain. Maggie touched my arm, but I stepped back, needing space. "I need to check something," I said, heading toward the house, my mind racing. I climbed to the attic where I'd found Grandpa's journal, hoping it held answers, something to fight back with. The stairs groaned, and the attic smelled of mildew, old trunks, and boxes stacked in shadows. I grabbed the journal from a crate, its pages yellowed, and flipped through, searching for anything about the farm, the pond, the debt. There was nothing, just Grandpa's stories about harvests and family. I tossed it down, dust rising, and sank to the floor, my hands in my hair. I was drowning, and no one was coming to save me. My phone rang, shattering the quiet. Charlotte's name flashed on the screen, and my heart pounded. I almost ignored it, but anger won out, and I answered, my voice cold. "What do you want?" She didn't miss a beat, her tone light mocking. "Just checking on my little farmer. How's the dirt treating you?" I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. She laughed, sharp and cruel. "Because it's fun, Hannah. Mom always said you'd never amount to much." Looks like she was right. The line went dead, and I stared at the phone, her words carving into me deeper than the will ever had. I sat frozen in the attic, the phone still in my hand. Charlotte's voice lingering like smoke. My chest ached, each breath sharp as Mom's supposed words looped in my mind. I'd never amount to much. Had she really said that? I dropped the phone, its clatter swallowed by the attic's gloom, and pressed my palms to my eyes, trying to block it all out. The journal lay open beside me, Grandpa's neat handwriting. A cruel reminder of a time when I felt loved. Now, even that felt like a lie. I stood, my legs shaky, and paced the creaky floorboards, dust swirling in the dim light filtering through a cracked window. I needed to move, to do something, anything, to shake the weight crushing me. I grabbed a cardboard box from a corner, its edges soft with age, and tore it open, desperate for a distraction. Inside were old family photos, the kind Mom used to pin to the fridge. I pulled one out, my hands trembling, a picture of me, Charlotte and Mom, at a county fair, my gap-toothed smile wide as I held a cotton candy bigger than my head. Charlotte was pouting, her arms crossed, while Mom laughed, her arm around me. I stared at it, my throat tightening. When had that love turned into pity? I dug deeper, finding more photos, each one a snapshot of a life I thought I understood. Me and Dad fishing at the pond, Charlotte nowhere in sight. Me and Mom baking cookies, flour on my nose. Why had they chosen her over me? I shoved the photos back, my fingers catching on a small notebook. Its cover faded blue. It was Mom's, her looping script filling the pages with grocery lists and reminders. I flipped through, hoping for a note, a letter, something to explain why she'd left me this farm, and nothing else. Instead, I found a page dated 2 years ago, the ink smudged, but readable. Charlotte's promotion dinner tonight. So proud. Hannah called, wants to visit. Too busy. My stomach twisted the words like a blade. Too busy for me, but never for Charlotte. I kept reading page after page of Charlotte's achievements, her new car, her fancy trips. My name appeared, only once more a single line: Hannah's teaching job seems fine. She'll manage. I slammed the notebook shut, my breath ragged, and hurled it across the room. It hit a trunk, pages fluttering, and I sank to my knees, my hands gripping my hair. Manage. That's what they thought of me. Someone to scrape by to handle the scraps while Charlotte shone. I wanted to scream, to tear the attic apart, but all I could do was sit there, the silence deafening. The farm wasn't just a burden. It was their judgment, their way of saying I was less. My phone buzzed again, and I flinched, dreading another call from Charlotte. It was a text from Aunt Clara, short and cautious. Hannah, can we talk? I know you're hurting. I stared at it, my anger flaring. Talk. Now. Where was she when Charlotte laughed in that office? When everyone watched me break, I typed a reply. Not now, and hit send, my fingers shaking. I couldn't face her pity, not when it felt like another betrayal. Aunt Clara had known about Mom's favoritism, had hinted at it, but never once stood up for me. No one had. I stood brushing dust off my jeans and walked to the attic window, the glass warped and streaked. Outside, the farm sprawled, its broken fences and barren fields, a mirror of how I felt inside. I thought of Gregory's truck, his gruff voice claiming the pond, and my fists clenched. That pond was the last piece of this place that felt like mine, and now even that was slipping away. I leaned my forehead against the glass, the cold biting my skin, and closed my eyes. I saw Mom's face, her smile, when Charlotte graduated, her distracted nod, when I showed her my first teaching award. I saw Dad, his silence when I asked about the farm's future, his hand on Charlotte's shoulder instead of mine. The attic creaked behind me like the house was groaning under its own weight, and I turned half expecting to see someone. But it was just me alone with ghosts I couldn't escape. I walked back to the box, my steps slow, and picked up another photo, this one of me and Charlotte at the pond, our feet dangling in the water, both of us grinning. We'd drawn it together later, a crayon sketch of fish and lilies, promising to keep the pond ours forever. I traced the faded colors, my vision blurring. That promise was as broken as this farm, and Charlotte didn't care. She'd taken everything Mom's loved Dad's trust, the fortune, and left me to drown in their disappointment. I clutched the drawing, my nails digging into the paper, and felt something snap inside. It wasn't just the farm, or the debt, or the pond. It was the realization that my family had never seen me. Not really. I was Sparrow, the quiet one, the one who'd managed the one they could forget. And now, with Charlotte's voice in my head, Mom's notebook in my hands, and this crumbling house around me, I felt smaller than ever, like I was disappearing into the dust. I pulled up to Aunt Clara's house, the gravel crunching under my tires, my hands sweaty on the steering wheel. It was a Saturday, and she'd invited the whole family for a reunion, a chance to heal after the will she'd said. I almost didn't come, but something in her voice, a quiet urgency, made me think she had answers. My heart pounded as I stepped out the summer air, thick with the scent of cut grass and barbecue. The house was alive with chatter cousins and uncles spilling onto the porch, but all I could think about was Charlotte. She'd be here basking in her fortune, while I carried the weight of the farm's debts and Mom's stinging words. Inside the living room was packed the hum of conversation, mixing with the clink of glasses. Aunt Clara spotted me, her silver hair pulled back, her smile tight. "Hannah, you made it," she said, hugging me, her floral dress soft against my cheek. I nodded, my throat dry, scanning the room for Charlotte. She was by the fireplace, holding court, her laugh sharp as she showed off a gold bracelet probably worth more than my car. Our cousins Nathan and Lila hung on her every word, their eyes bright with envy. I stayed near the door, my sneakers squeaking on the hardwood, feeling like an outsider in my own family. Aunt Clara tugged my arm, leading me to the kitchen where the smell of apple pie filled the air. "We need to talk," she whispered, closing the door behind us. Her hands fidgeted with a dish towel, her eyes avoiding mine. "Hannah, I should have told you sooner. Your mom." She listened to Charlotte about the will. I froze, my pulse loud in my ears, listened how I asked, my voice low. Aunt Clara sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Charlotte convinced her you weren't ready for money, that you'd waste it. She said the farm would teach you to stand on your own." My breath caught sharp and painful. Charlotte had orchestrated this. I leaned against the counter, the cool tile grounding me as my mind raced. "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked, my voice cracking. Aunt Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I tried, but your mom was stubborn." She thought Charlotte knew best. I turned away, my nails digging into my palms, the betrayal slicing deeper than the will itself. Charlotte hadn't just taken the money. She'd shaped how Mom saw me, twisted my place in the family. I pushed past Aunt Clara, needing air, and stepped into the backyard where kids ran through a sprinkler, their squeals distant. I was shaking my chest tight when I heard Charlotte's voice behind me, loud and smug. "Oh, look, the farmer's here." I turned, and there she was, flanked by Nathan and Lila, a wine glass in her hand. She stepped closer, her heels sinking into the grass. "Enjoying your little reunion, Hannah? Or are you too busy crying over that dump?" Nathan laughed, nervous, and Lila looked away, but I felt their judgment, their dismissal. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, I overheard Charlotte talking to Nathan by the picnic table, her voice low but clear. "The farm was Mom's idea, you know. A joke to keep Hannah busy while I got the real prize." My blood ran cold. A joke. I stepped closer, hidden by a rose bush, my heart hammering. Nathan frowned. "That's harsh, Charlotte." She shrugged, sipping her wine. "She's always been soft. Mom knew it. Why waste money on someone who'd just fail?" I stumbled back, my sneakers catching on a root, my vision blurring. The farm wasn't just a burden. It was a deliberate slight, a way to keep me small. I wanted to confront her, to scream, but my feet carried me inside, past the crowd, up the stairs to Aunt Clara's guest room. I locked the door, my breaths shallow, and sank onto the bed, its quilt smelling faintly of lavender. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, scrolling through Charlotte's social media, her posts a parade of luxury yachts, designer bags, captions about earning her life. Each photo was a knife proof she'd won, proof I was nothing. I stood pacing the small room, my reflection flashing in a mirror. My face was pale, my eyes hollow, but something burned inside me, a spark I hadn't felt before. I couldn't stay here, couldn't face her yet. I slipped out, avoiding the party, and drove back to the farm, the road a blur of green and gray. The house was dark when I arrived, the silence heavy as I climbed to the attic, my flashlight cutting through the shadows. I needed answers, something to prove they were wrong about me. I rummaged through a trunk, my hands brushing old clothes and books, until my fingers hit a metal box, cold and heavy. I pulled it out, my breath hitching as I saw Dad's initials etched on the lid. I pried it open, the hinges groaning, and found a single letter inside, folded tight, my name in Dad's scrawl. I unfolded it, my hands trembling, and read Hannah. I let the farm fail to teach you resilience. You're stronger than you know. Stronger. The words burned my tears, smudging the ink. He'd ruined the farm on purpose. Left me to struggle and called it a lesson. I clutched the letter, my knees buckling, and sank to the floor, the attic's chill wrapping around me. This wasn't love. It was sabotage. My parents hadn't just favored Charlotte, they'd engineered my failure, and she'd helped them do it. The truth was a weight. I couldn't carry a wound that split me open, and I didn't know how to stop the bleeding. I sat on the attic floor, Dad's letter crumpled in my fist, my tears soaking the paper. The words burned into me, his claim of teaching resilience a cruel mockery. I wanted to tear it apart, to burn this house down, but I was too hollow, my energy drained by the weight of his confession. The attic's shadows pressed closer, the air thick with dust, and I felt like I was suffocating. I needed to face Charlotte to make her see the wreckage she'd helped create. I stood my legs unsteady and drove back to town, the farm fading in my rear view, its broken silhouette a mirror of my heart. I pulled up to Charlotte's new condo, a sleek glass building that screamed wealth, its lights glowing against the dusk. My hands shook as I parked my old sedan out of place among the polished SUVs. I hadn't planned this, hadn't thought past the need to confront her, but my anger carried me forward. I buzzed her apartment, my voice tight when she answered. "It's Hannah. We need to talk." A pause, then a laugh, sharp and familiar. "Fine, come up." The elevator ride was silent, the mirrored walls showing my disheveled hair, my red-rimmed eyes. I looked like someone who'd been broken, and I hated it. Charlotte's door was open when I stepped out, and she stood in the hallway, her silk robe tied loosely, a glass of red wine in her hand. "Well, this is a surprise," she said, her smile cold, her eyes scanning me like I was something to pity. I clenched my fists, Dad's letter folded in my pocket, its edges digging into my thigh. I followed her inside the condo, a blur of marble counters and designer furniture, a world I didn't belong in. She gestured to a white couch, but I stayed standing, my boots scuffing her polished floor. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice low, trembling. "Why did you tell Mom I'd waste the money? Why did you let them ruin the farm?" Charlotte raised an eyebrow, sipping her wine, unruffled. "Oh, Hannah, don't be dramatic. You were never cut out for this." She waved a hand, dismissing the fortune, the farm me. I stepped closer, my voice rising. "You lied to them. You made them think I was weak, and they destroyed the farm to prove it." I pulled out the letter, holding it up my hand, shaking. "Dad wrote this. He said he let it fail for me. Did you know?" Her eyes flicked to the paper, and for a split second, her mask slipped, a flash of guilt crossing her face. Then she laughed louder this time, the sound cutting through me. "You're pathetic, Hannah. Digging through scraps, clinging to that dump. Mom and Dad knew you'd never rise above it. Why do you think they chose me?" Her words hit like a fist, each one stripping away the last threads of hope I'd held. I wanted to scream, to make her feel the pain she'd caused, but my throat closed, my breath shallow. She stepped closer, her perfume sharp, her voice dropping to a hiss. "You want the truth? I told Mom you'd squander anything they gave you. I told her the farm was perfect for you, dirt for dirt. And she agreed. So did Dad. They saw you, Hannah, and they still chose me." I staggered back, my hip hitting a glass table, the clink loud in the quiet. My mind reeled, picturing Mom nodding at Charlotte's lies, Dad signing the will. both of them agreeing I was nothing. Charlotte watched me, her smile triumphant, like she'd won some game I didn't know we were playing. "You should go," she said, turning away, her robe swishing. I stood frozen, the letter slipping from my fingers, fluttering to the floor. My eyes burned, but no tears came. I was too empty, too shattered. I stumbled out the condo's lights, blurring the elevator's hum, a distant drone. Outside, the night air was cool, but it didn't reach the ache inside me. I slid into my car, my hands gripping the wheel, my reflection in the windshield, a stranger's. Charlotte's words. Mom's agreement, Dad's betrayal. They swirled in my head, a storm with no end. I was alone, discarded my worth, measured in a failed farm and a sister's scorn. And I didn't know how to keep going. I drove back to the farm in a daze, Charlotte's words clawing at me, her condo's sterile glow fading in the rear view. The night was heavy stars hidden behind clouds, and my car's headlights barely cut through the dark. I parked by the house, the engine ticking as it cooled, and sat there, my hands numb on the wheel. Her voice echoed dirt for dirt, and I felt it like I was nothing but the dust on this land. But something else stirred, a flicker deep inside, sparked by Dad's letter, by the betrayal I couldn't unsee. I wasn't done yet. I stepped out the gravel sharp under my boots and headed to the attic, my flashlight's beam slicing the shadows. The air was thick with mildew, the floor creaking as I knelt by Grandpa's journal, its leather cover worn but warm in my hands. I hadn't touched it since finding it too raw to face its hope. Now I needed it. I flipped through my fingers, careful, searching for anything to anchor me. A page caught my eye, Grandpa's handwriting slanted but firm. Sparrow look where the sun sets. The truth is there. My breath hitched. Sparrow. He'd called me that when I was little, said I was small, but could fly anywhere. Had he left me something more? I stood, my heart pounding, and scanned the attic, the western wall, where the sun's last light would hit. Boxes and old furniture cluttered the space, but a faded rug lay against the wall, its edges curling. I dragged it aside, my arms straining, and saw a faint outline in the wood, a panel no bigger than a door. My pulse raced as I ran my fingers along it, feeling a seam, a hidden latch. I pressed, and it clicked, the panel swinging inward with a groan, revealing a narrow space barely lit by my flashlight. I stepped inside the air cooler, smelling of earth and old wood. My beam caught a wooden chest, its surface carved with the sparrow wings spread just like my nickname. My throat tightened, and I knelt, my knees pressing into the dusty floor. The chest was locked, but I remembered the journal, its back cover oddly thick. I grabbed it, my hands shaking, and peeled back the lining, finding a small brass key taped inside. It fit the lock perfectly, the click loud in the silence. I lifted the lid, my breath shallow, expecting papers, maybe money, something to fight Charlotte with. Instead, I found a bundle of letters tied with twine and a small cloth pouch. I untied the letters, my fingers clumsy, and saw Grandpa's writing addressed to me. The first one began, "My Sparrow. If you're reading this, you've found my heart." My eyes stung, but I kept reading his words, painting a story of the farm's past, its hidden value, and his fear that Dad would squander it. He'd locked away proof he wrote to protect me. I opened the pouch, my hands trembling, and found a single deed, yellowed but clear, listing mineral rights beneath the farm. My mind spun, Mineral rights could mean oil gas millions. I sat back the letters in my lap. Grandpa's faith in me, a lifeline I hadn't expected. He'd seen me even when Mom and Dad hadn't, and he'd left me a way out. But it wasn't enough to just find this. I had to act to use it. I tucked the deed and letters into my bag and headed outside, the night air sharp against my skin. The pond glittered under the moon, and I remembered Gregory's claim, his gruff voice saying it was his. If the farm had hidden value, maybe the pond did too. I needed answers. I drove to Gregory's house, a low ranch, just beyond the fence line, its porch light buzzing. I knocked my knuckles firm, and he opened the door. His flannel shirt rumpled, his eyes narrowing. "What do you want, Hannah?" he asked, leaning against the frame. I stood tall, my voice steady. "Tell me about the pond. Why do you think it's yours?" He frowned, surprised, and stepped outside, closing the door. "Your dad tried to cheat me," he said, his voice low. "Said the boundary line was wrong, but I've got papers from '85 proving it's mine." I crossed my arms, the deed burning in my bag. "Show me." I said, my tone sharper than I'd planned. He hesitated, then nodded, disappearing inside. My heart raced, the flicker inside me growing, a spark of something I hadn't felt in months, control. I wasn't just Sparrow anymore, small and overlooked. I was Hannah, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. Gregory came back with a folder, its edges frayed, and spread a faded survey map on his porch table, the wood rough under my fingers. The map showed the pond a jagged line marking his claim, but my eyes caught a discrepancy, a handwritten note in the corner, initialed by Grandpa. "This isn't right," I said, pointing, my voice firm. My grandfather drew this boundary differently. Gregory's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue, just shoved the map back into the folder. "Take it up with a lawyer," he muttered, turning away. I nodded, clutching my bag with the deed inside, and walked back to my car, the night air cool against my flushed skin. For the first time, I felt like I had ground to stand on. Back at the farm, I spread Grandpa's letters across the kitchen table, the bulb overhead flickering. Each one detailed his plans for the farm, his belief in its hidden worth, and his regret that Dad never listened. One letter stood out, written a year before he died. "Sparrow, the land holds secrets only you can find. Don't let them break you." My chest tightened, but not with pain, with purpose. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for Grandpa's trust for the girl he'd believed in. I pulled out my laptop, the screen's glow harsh in the dim room, and searched for a lawyer in town, someone who could handle property disputes. My fingers hesitated, the weight of what I was starting sinking in. This wasn't just about the pond or the deed. It was about proving Charlotte, Mom, Dad, everyone wrong. I found Rachel a lawyer with sharp reviews and a no-nonsense photo, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes steady. I emailed her, attaching a scan of the deed and a summary of the will, my words careful but urgent. "I need to know if I can fight this." I wrote, my heart pounding as I hit send. The next morning, I drove to Rachel's office, a small brick building downtown, its waiting room smelling of fresh paint and coffee. Rachel was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35. Her handshake firm, her voice calm but direct. "I've read your email," she said, sliding the deed across her desk. "This is big, Hannah. Mineral rights could mean millions, but we need to verify everything." I nodded, my throat dry, and handed her Grandpa's letters, their edges soft from my grip. She skimmed them, her brow furrowing. "Your sister's involvement raises red flags. I'll dig into the will's execution, see if there's foul play." I leaned forward, my hands clasped tight. "What about the pond? My neighbor's claiming it." Rachel tapped her pen, her eyes narrowing. We'll order a new survey, cross-reference your grandfather's records. If his boundary holds the pond's yours. Her confidence steadied me like a rope, pulling me from quicksand. For years, I'd let others decide my worth. Mom's dismissals, Dad's silence, Charlotte's cruelty. Now I was choosing to fight, and it felt like waking up. I left Rachel's office, the morning sun warm on my face, and drove back to the farm, my mind buzzing. I parked by the barn, its sagging frame less daunting now, and walked to the hidden room, needing to feel Grandpa's presence again. The chest sat open, its sparrow carving catching the light. I traced it, my fingers steady, and whispered, "I'm trying, Grandpa." The words hung in the air, a promise I hadn't made before. My phone buzzed, Rachel's name flashing. I answered, my pulse quickening. "Hannah." I found something she said, her voice tense. "The surveyor who valued the farm before the will? He's got ties to your sister. Looks like she paid him to lowball it." My breath caught the spark inside me flaring. Charlotte hadn't just taken the fortune. She'd rigged the game from the start. I thanked Rachel, my voice calm but hard, and hung up, staring at the chest. I walked outside the farm's fields, stretching before me, no longer just a burden, but a battleground. I stopped by the pond, its surface rippling in the breeze, and picked up a pebble, skipping it across the water, just like Grandpa taught me. The ripples spread steady and sure, and I stood there, my boots planted in the earth. Charlotte thought I was dirt, but this dirt was mine, and I wasn't letting go. I turned back to the house, my steps deliberate, my eyes fixed on the horizon, ready for whatever came next. I sat at the kitchen table, the morning light filtering through the farm's grimy windows, casting long shadows across Grandpa's letters. The deed for the mineral rights lay beside them, its ink faded but bold, promising a future I hadn't dared imagine. Rachel's call about Charlotte's surveyor bribe still echoed a spark of vindication that warmed me, despite the chill in the house. I sipped coffee, the mug's chipped rim rough against my lips, and felt different, steadier, like I'd claimed a piece of myself back. But I knew this was just the start, and the weight of what came next pressed heavy. Rachel had arranged a meeting with a geologist to assess the mineral rights, and I drove into town, the farm's dirt road rattling my car. The geologist's office was tucked above a hardware store, its walls lined with rock samples and maps. Dr. Elaine, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a firm handshake, spread a survey across her desk. "Your land's got potential," she said, tracing a line with her finger. "Preliminary tests show natural gas deposits possibly worth millions." My heart skipped, but her next words sobered me. "It'll take time to confirm, and you'll need capital to drill." I nodded, my mind racing, millions but not yet mine, and Charlotte wouldn't sit idle. I left the office, the town's main street bustling with morning shoppers, and felt eyes on me. A woman from church, Mrs. Leela, waved, but her smile faltered like she knew something. I brushed it off, heading to Rachel's office to prepare for court. She was waiting, her desk stacked with files, her expression grim. "Hannah, we've got traction," she said, sliding a document toward me. The surveyor admitted to fudging the farm's value after Charlotte paid him. "It's enough to challenge the will's fairness." I exhaled, relief mixing with dread. This was real now, and Charlotte would fight dirty. I drove back to the farm, the sky clouding over, and found a letter taped to the front door. No stamp, just my name in sharp black ink. My stomach twisted as I opened it, recognizing Charlotte's handwriting. "Hannah, let's settle this privately," it read. "I'll give you $100,000 to drop the case. Don't embarrass yourself." My hands shook, the paper crinkling. $100,000 was more than I'd ever had, but it was a fraction of the farm's potential, a bribe to keep me small. I tore the letter in half, my jaw tight, and tossed it into the trash. But her words lingered, a taunt I couldn't shake. I walked to the pond, needing its quiet, and sat on the bank, the grass damp under my jeans. The water was still reflecting the gray sky, and I thought of Gregory, his claim now weaker with Grandpa's deed in play. As if summoned, his truck rumbled up the road, stopping near the fence. He stepped out, his boots heavy, his face softer than before. "Hannah," he called, walking over, his hands in his pockets. "I heard you're fighting for the pond. Found some old papers, didn't you?" I nodded, wary, my fingers curling into the dirt. He sighed, looking at the water. "My dad and your grandpa argued over this years ago. I was wrong to come at you like that. I'm dropping the claim." I blinked, caught off guard, my throat tightening. "Why now?" I asked, my voice low. He shrugged, his eyes distant. "You're not your dad, and I'm tired of old fights." He turned back to his truck, leaving me staring at the pond, its surface unbroken. His apology was a small victory, but it felt fragile, like it could vanish under Charlotte's shadow. I stood, brushing dirt off my hands, and headed inside the farm's silence louder than ever. My phone buzzed as I reached the kitchen, an unknown number. I answered, cautious, and a man's voice came through, clipped and professional. "Ms. Hannah, I'm with Charlotte's legal team. We're prepared to contest your claims in court. Drop this, or it'll get ugly." The line went dead before I could respond, and I stood frozen, the phone cold against my ear. Charlotte wasn't just bribing me. She was threatening me, her claws out, ready to tear down what I'd built. I set the phone down, my hands steady, but my heart racing, and looked at Grandpa's letters, their words a faint anchor. I'd started this fight, but now it was bigger than me, and I wasn't sure I was ready for the storm coming. I stood in the kitchen, the stranger's threat from Charlotte's lawyer ringing in my ears. My fingers still curled around the phone. The farm's quiet felt heavier now, like it was waiting for me to crack. I set the phone down, its screen dark, and walked to the sink, splashing cold water on my face. The droplets stung, grounding me, but my reflection in the window, pale, sharp-edged, looked like someone I barely knew. I'd stirred a hornet's nest, and Charlotte was coming for me. But Grandpa's deed, his faith was a shield I couldn't let go. I called Rachel, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "They're threatening to drag this out," I said, pacing the worn linoleum. She didn't hesitate. "That's what they do when they're scared, Hannah. We've got evidence. Stay the course." Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't ease the chill settling in me. I hung up and sat at the table, the mineral rights deed glowing under the lamplight. It was power, but it came with a cost I hadn't fully grasped. The next day, I met Maggie at the diner, needing a friend, needing normalcy. The place smelled of bacon and syrup, its red booths packed with locals. Maggie slid into the seat across from me, her smile fading as she saw my face. "You look like you haven't slept," she said, pushing a coffee toward me. I shrugged, the mug warm in my hands. "Charlotte's lawyers called. They want me to back off." Maggie's eyes widened, but before she could speak, the diner's chatter shifted heads, turning toward the door. I followed their gaze and saw Charlotte, her designer coat catching the light, her presence sucking the air from the room. She didn't see me at first, laughing with a woman I didn't know, her voice loud, carefree. Then her eyes met mine, and her smile froze just for a second before hardening into something sharp. She walked over, her heels clicking, and stopped at our table, ignoring Maggie. "Hannah," she said, her tone syrupy, "heard you're stirring up trouble, poking around in things you don't understand." I held her gaze, my heart pounding but my voice calm. "I'm just claiming what's mine." Her laugh was soft, cutting. "Yours? You're out of your depth, little sister." She turned away, leaving a trail of perfume and whispers. Maggie reached for my hand, but I pulled back, my skin prickling. The diner's eyes were on me, some curious, others cold, like I'd broken some unspoken rule. I paid for my coffee and left the bell above the door, jangling behind me. Outside, the air was crisp, but it didn't clear the fog in my head. Charlotte's confidence, the town's stares, it was all a reminder of how small I'd always been to them. I drove to the courthouse where Rachel had arranged to file our claim, my hands tight on the wheel. The courthouse was old, its marble steps worn smooth, the lobby smelling of wax and paper. Rachel met me by a wooden bench, her briefcase heavy with documents. "We're filing today," she said, her voice low. "The surveyor's confession is our ace, but Charlotte's team is pushing back hard." I nodded, signing where she pointed, my pen steady, but my stomach churning. As we left, I saw Nathan, my cousin, across the street, his baseball cap pulled low. He caught my eye and looked away quick, like I was a stranger. My chest tightened. Even family was turning, caught in Charlotte's orbit. Back at the farm, I walked to the barn, its doors warped from years of neglect. I needed to feel the land, to remember why I was fighting. Inside, the air was cool hay dust, swirling in shafts of light. I climbed to the loft, my boots thudding on the ladder, and sat on a bale, the straw poking through my jeans. Below, the farm stretched out its fields, rough but stubborn like me. I thought of Grandpa, his letters, his belief that I could rise. But Charlotte's threat, Nathan's avoidance, the town's whispers, they were walls closing in, and I felt the fight draining from me. I pulled a small stone from my pocket, one I'd picked up by the pond, its surface smooth from years of water. I turned it over, my fingers tracing its curves, and thought of Maggie, still loyal, of Rachel, still pushing. They saw me, but it wasn't enough to drown out the voices, Charlotte's mom's, dad's, saying I'd never be more. I closed my eyes, the stone cold in my palm, and let the barn's silence swallow me. I'd taken my stand, but the cost was heavier than I'd imagined, and I wasn't sure I could carry it alone. The farm felt different that morning, softer somehow, as if the earth itself had exhaled. I woke early, the sky still pink, and stepped onto the porch with a mug of tea, the steam curling in the cool air. The fields were dusted with dew, their edges catching the light, and for the first time, they didn't look like a curse. I'd hired a crew to start repairs using the small savings Grandpa left in an account I'd found with his letters. The barn's new roof beams were up, their wood pale against the old red paint, a quiet sign of change. I sipped my tea, its warmth spreading, and let myself breathe. I walked to the edge of the property, where a patch of wildflowers had started to bloom, their purple heads swaying. I knelt, my jeans damp from the grass, and ran my fingers over their petals, fragile but stubborn. They reminded me of summers here as a kid, when I'd weave them into crowns and pretend I was queen of the land. Back then, the farm was magic, a place where I belonged. I stood brushing dirt off my hands and decided to plant something new. Something mine. I called Maggie, and by noon she was here, her pickup loaded with seedlings and tools, her laugh bright as we unloaded them. We worked side by side, digging into the soil near the house, the earth cool and heavy under our spades. Maggie hummed an old country tune, her hands quick, and I found myself smiling, the sound grounding me. "You're different, Hannah," she said, pausing to wipe sweat from her brow. "Stronger, I mean." "Not letting Charlotte win?" I shrugged, pushing a seedling into place, its roots delicate in my palm. "I'm just trying to live," I said, but her words settled in me, a truth I hadn't named. I wasn't the girl who'd crumbled at the will reading anymore. I was building one small choice at a time. As we planted, I thought of Aunt Clara, her text from last week still unanswered. "I'm sorry, Hannah. Can we talk?" I'd ignored it too raw, but now with the sun warming my back, I wondered if I could face her. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering, and sent a short message. "Dinner tomorrow." Her reply came fast. "Yes, please," and I felt a knot loosen, not gone, but lighter. Maggie caught my eye, grinning. "Look at you making peace." I rolled my eyes, but her teasing felt like a gift, a reminder I wasn't alone. That afternoon, I drove to the cemetery, a quiet plot on the edge of town where Grandpa's stone sat under an oak. I parked and walked to it, the grass soft under my sneakers, and knelt, tracing his name with my finger. "I found your room," I whispered, my voice catching. "I'm fighting for it like you wanted." A breeze stirred the leaves, and I closed my eyes, picturing his crinkled smile, the way he'd call me Sparrow. I didn't cry, not this time. I felt him with me, not in the stone, but in the strength I'd found, the part of me that refused to break. I stood, the sky deepening to gold, and looked out at the rolling hills, their curves familiar, unchanged. The farm wasn't just land anymore. It was a choice, a place I was shaping, just as it was shaping me. I drove back the road, winding through fields, and pulled up to the house as the first stars appeared. I stepped inside, the air cool, and felt a stillness I hadn't known in months. I was ready to face Clara, to hear her out, maybe even to forgive. Not for her, but for me. Because I deserved to let go. I spent the next morning sweeping the farmhouse, the broom's bristles scraping years of dust from the floors. The windows were open, letting in a breeze that carried the scent of fresh soil from the new garden. Each stroke felt like clearing more than dirt. It was space for something new for me. I paused by the staircase, noticing a small crack in the banister, one I'd made as a kid, swinging too hard on it. I traced it, smiling faintly. The house held my scars, but it held my stories too. Aunt Clara arrived that evening, her car crunching up the drive as the sky turned lavender. I met her on the porch, my hands tucked into my sweater, the air cool against my cheeks. She looked older, her eyes soft with worry, a casserole dish in her arms. "I made your favorite," she said, her voice tentative. "Chicken and rice." I nodded, taking the dish, its warmth seeping through the foil. We sat at the kitchen table, the bulb above us steady now, fixed by the crew. The silence wasn't heavy, just careful, like we were learning each other again. She spoke first, her fingers twisting a napkin. "Hannah, I failed you. I saw your mom pull away, saw Charlotte push, and I didn't fight hard enough." Her voice broke, and I looked at her, really looked. Her hands were spotted with age, her shoulders curved from carrying her own regrets. I wanted to be angry, but the fire was gone, replaced by a quiet ache. "Why didn't you?" I asked, not sharp, just curious. She sighed, her eyes meeting mine. "I was afraid of losing them, of losing you." I was wrong. I leaned back, the chair creaking, and let her words settle. They didn't erase the hurt, but they dulled its edges like a stone smoothed by water. "I needed you," I said, my voice low. "But I'm here now, and I'm okay." Her eyes glistened, and she reached for my hand. Her grip warm. I didn't pull away. We ate the casserole, rich and familiar, and talked about small things, her garden, my teaching job, the farm's new roof. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a start, a door left open. After she left, I walked to the attic, the stairs familiar under my feet. The space was less cluttered now. Boxes sorted the hidden room's chest still open. I sat by it, the floor cool, and found an old radio tucked behind a crate, its dials tarnished but intact. I plugged it in, half expecting silence, but a soft crackle filled the air. Then a song, Grandpa's favorite, a slow country ballad about home. My breath caught the notes wrapping around me, like his voice once did. I closed my eyes, the music steady, and felt him here, not as a ghost, but as a memory I could carry without pain. I turned off the radio, the silence gentle now, and looked out the attic window. The farm lay quiet, its fields softening under moonlight, the wildflowers a faint glow. I thought of Dad, his letter, his mistakes. I didn't hate him anymore, not like I had. He'd hurt me, but he was human flawed like me, like Clara. I stood my hands steady and walked downstairs, the house no longer a weight, but a place I was choosing. I stepped outside the night air crisp and sat on the porch steps, my elbows on my knees. The stars were bright, endless, and I watched them, my breath slow, my heart still. I wasn't whole, not yet, but I was enough, and that was a kind of peace. A year later, the farm doesn't look like it used to. The fields are green now, dotted with rows of vegetables, their leaves catching the morning sun. I wake early, my boots already by the door, and step outside, the air sharp with the promise of fall. My hands are calloused dirt under my nails from tending the community garden. I started a patchwork of plots where neighbors grow tomatoes and squash. I walk the rows, checking the soil, and nod to Lucas, who's hauling compost, his grin easy. He's become a friend, someone who shows up without asking why. The farm hums with life, kids running through their laughter, mixing with the clatter of tools. It's not perfect, but it's mine, built from choices I made when I thought I had nothing left. I head to the barn, now a workshop space, its walls lined with shelves for canning jars and seed packets. Today's a class day, and I'm teaching a group of local teens how to plant winter greens. They shuffle in, some shy, others loud, their sneakers scuffing the floor. I show them how to press seeds into soil, my voice steady, my hands sure. One girl, Mia, lingers after her braids swinging as she asks about crop rotation. I answer, seeing myself in her curiosity, and feel a quiet pride. This is what the farms become, a place to learn to grow, not just for me, but for them. By noon, I'm back at the house, wiping sweat from my brow, a glass of iced tea sweating on the counter. The kitchen's different now, the cabinets painted blue, the sink fixed. I sit at the table, a new one I bought with the first profits from the garden, and open a ledger, tracking what we've earned. It's not millions, not yet, but the mineral rights case is moving forward. Rachel's team inching closer to a ruling. I don't dream of wealth anymore, though. This, the dirt, the work, the people is enough. I think of Charlotte sometimes, though, less often now. She left town after the court's first hearing, where Rachel exposed her bribe to the surveyor. The judge's gavel fell like a door slamming, and Charlotte's face, pale and tight, was the last I saw of her. I heard she sold the condo, moved to a city up north. I don't wish her ill, but I don't miss her either. Her absence is a space I've filled with better things, like the way Maggie drops by with pie, or how Lucas stays late to fix a fence, no questions asked. In the afternoons, I walk to a clearing behind the house where I've started a small orchard, apple saplings rooted in neat rows. I check their stakes, adjusting ties, the bark smooth under my fingers. It's slow work, years before they'll bear fruit, but I like the waiting, the trust in something growing. I sit on a bench I built, the wood still smelling of varnish, and watch clouds drift their edges soft against the sky. My breathing slows, my shoulders loose, and I feel a stillness I didn't know I could claim. I've started writing in a notebook, not Grandpa's, but my own, its pages crisp and white. I jot thoughts, plans, sometimes just the way the light hits the fields. It's not for anyone else, just a way to hold myself steady, to mark the days I choose to keep going. I think about Mom and Dad, their choices, their mistakes. I don't carry their weight anymore, not like I did. They were people, flawed, and I've let them rest. The farms taught me that, how to hold what matters and let go of what doesn't. As the sun dips, I head inside the house, warm from the day's heat. I stand in the doorway, looking out at the land, its curves familiar, its scars like mine. I'm not the girl who stood in Charlotte's condo, broken by her words. I'm Hannah, 30 now, and I've built something real. I close the door, the latch clicking softly, and let the quiet settle ready for whatever comes next. As evening falls, I light a candle on the kitchen counter, its flames steady in the dusk. The house is quiet, the kind of quiet that feels full, not empty. I pull out my notebook and flip to a blank page, the pen smooth in my hand. I don't write about the past anymore, not about Charlotte or the will or the pain that once defined me. Instead, I sketch ideas for the farm, a greenhouse, a summer camp for kids, a place where people can find what I've found, a chance to start over. The candle's glow softens the room, and I feel a warmth that's mine, earned through months of choosing to stay. I walk to the porch, the boards solid under my feet, and lean against the railing, the night air cool on my skin. The farm stretches out its fields, dark but alive, the orchard's saplings faint silhouettes. I think about what this place has taught me, what I've learned from standing in the dirt and refusing to fall. It's not about winning, not about proving Charlotte wrong or claiming the fortune. It's about knowing I'm enough just as I am, scars and all. I used to think strength meant never breaking, but now I see it's in the mending, in the quiet choice to keep going when the world says you shouldn't. I've learned something else, something harder. Forgiveness isn't about erasing hurt. It's about making room for yourself. I don't carry mom's dismissal or dad's betrayal anymore, not because they didn't matter, but because I've chosen to set them down. I've forgiven Clara not for her sake, but for mine, so I can live without the weight of resentment. Even Charlotte, somewhere in her own story, doesn't haunt me now. I hope she finds her own peace, but it's not my burden to carry. The farm, this land, these people, they've shown me that worth isn't given or taken. It's built day by day in the small acts that no one sees. I step back inside, the candle still burning, and sit at the table, my hands folded. I think of the kids in the workshop, their eager questions, and Lucas's steady presence, his hammer fixing what's broken. I think of Maggie's laugh, bright and unforced, and the neighbors who bring cuttings to share. This is my wealth, not in dollars, but in roots in the life I've grown from nothing. I close my notebook, the pages full, and blow out the candle, the smoke curling upward, faint and free. The farm is my home, not because I was given it, but because I chose it, and that choice has made me whole. I want to ask you something, whoever's listening. What's the one thing you've held on to, even when it hurt, that made you who you are today? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this journey resonated with you, maybe hit like or subscribe to join me for more. Sharing this with someone who needs it could mean the world. Thank you for being here, for walking this path with me. Here's to finding your own light wherever you are.